and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India is fanning terrorism in Balochistan and other areas of the country. Addressing a gathering in Chakwal, he said the EU Disinfo Lab has exposed India's malicious propaganda against Pakistan. Khan said the Indian network of fake websites and think tanks is trying to create chaos in Pakistan. In occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Indian troops have martyred 2 Kashmir youths in yet another fake encounter in Shopian district. Over 290 Kashmiris have been killed since New Delhi revoked the occupied valley status and imposed a curfew in August last year. Meanwhile, authorities have detained 75 Kashmiri politicians and activists after an anti-Modi alliance won a local election. In Afghanistan, 4 security personnel have been killed and 4 others wounded in multiple blasts in Kabul. Police say the attacks were targeted at security officials in various parts of the city. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Israeli military has bombed parts of Gaza by conducting airstrikes in the blockaded region in the early hours. Locals say the Air Force hit the Al Barouj refugee camp in central Gaza and their Al Bala region. The attack damaged a children's hospital, a residential area, and a rehabilitation center for the disabled. U.S. COVID-19 death count has exceeded 330,000, while the caseload of the country has reached over 18.7 million. The new strain of the coronavirus recently found in the United Kingdom has also been detected in France. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported over 2,000 cases and 63 deaths overnight, taking the toll to 9,816. Global number of infections is approaching the 80 million mark, while the death count is more than 1.74 million. And in cricket, New Zealand have ended day 1 of the first test at 222 runs for a loss of 3 wickets against Pakistan. Kane Williamson is still on the crease at 94 runs, while Ross Taylor departed after scoring 70 for the Kiwis. Shaheen Shah Afridi was pick of the bowlers for his 3 for 55 for the visitors. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India is fanning terrorism in Balochistan and other areas of the country. Speaking to a gathering in Chakwal, he said the EU Disinfo Lab has exposed India's malicious propaganda against Pakistan. Khan said the Indian network of fake websites and think tanks was trying to create chaos in Pakistan. The Prime Minister also slammed the Indian government for being racist and anti-Muslim. Last month, Pakistan presented a detailed dossier containing details of India's state sponsorship of terrorism. Islamabad has repeatedly urged the United Nations and the international community to take notice of the Indian actions. In occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Indian troops have martyred 2 more Kashmiri youths in yet another fake encounter in Shopian district. Indian troops have killed over 290 Kashmiris since New Delhi revoked the occupied valley status and imposed a curfew in August last year. Meanwhile, authorities have detained 75 Kashmiri politicians and activists. The crackdown was launched after an anti-Modi alliance won the recently held local election. In a statement, the regional alliance has condemned the arrest. Moving on to Indian farmers have rejected Prime Minister Narendra Modi's allegation of a political agenda behind the protest. Farmers said the Premier should stop confusing people and not obfuscate their movement. The Farmers Union official said the government is not ready to back down on the new agriculture laws. The official added farmers are prepared for a long haul. The Farmers Union will hold a meeting today to discuss the government's offer for talks. The farmers have been protesting in Delhi for over a month now, demanding a repeal of laws that they say will benefit big corporations. In Afghanistan, 4 security force members have been killed and 4 others wounded in multiple blasts in Kabul this morning. Police said the day started with 4 explosions in less than 3 hours in various parts of the city. Police said the first explosion happened in Chaman-e-Hazuri area with no casualties. The second explosion occurred in the west of Kabul, which targeted a vehicle carrying a senior official from the VIP protection unit. Police said the third attack was a roadside bomb that targeted a police vehicle in which 3 security force members were wounded. The fourth blast in Dehbori area also targeted a police vehicle. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. In Syria, the government forces have killed at least 3 civilians and wounded another in an artillery strike in Idlib. The assault violates the March 5 ceasefire signed between Turkey and Russia. Idlib is the last province held by rebels who have been beaten back in a 9-year-long civil war. Nearly 2 million people have fled the violence since 2017. Israeli military has bombed parts of Gaza by conducting airstrikes in the blockaded region in the early hours. Locals say the Air Force hit the El Barouj refugee camp in central Gaza and Deir al-Balah region. The attack damaged a children's hospital, a residential area, and a rehabilitation center for the disabled. Meanwhile, confirming the strike, Israeli army said it hit alleged Hamas targets, including a rocket manufacturing site and a military post. However, the Palestinian authorities are yet to issue a statement on the matter. Earlier, Israeli occupation forces attacked peaceful Palestinian protesters and wounded dozens, including a 10-year-old child in the West Bank. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has held a telephonic conversation with Morocco's King Mohammed VI. In a statement, Netanyahu's office said the Prime Minister invited the king to visit Israel. The 2 leaders also discussed moving forward with a U.S. broker deal to normalize the bilateral ties. They determined the processes and mechanisms to implement the agreements. The statement read Netanyahu thanked the king for hosting an official Israeli delegation earlier this week. Meanwhile, the Moroccan royal court said King Mohammed welcomed the resumption of relations with Israel. The court added the king also reiterated Morocco's unchanged position regarding the Palestine issue. Morocco became the latest Muslim state to normalize relations with Israel. 3 UN peacekeepers have been killed by unidentified fighters in the Central African Republic ahead of the country's general elections. In a statement, the UN said 2 peacekeepers have also been wounded in the attacks on its troops. UN said the assaults took place in Dikoa, Central Kivu Prefecture, and Mbakoma, Southern Mabu Prefecture. Earlier, Bangui rebel coalition called off a unilateral truce and reiterated calls for suspension of election. UN chief spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric condemned the attack and called on the country's authorities to investigate the assaults. Hundreds of UN peacekeepers and military instructors from Russia have been deployed to the African country to deter violence. The violence during elections has already enforced over 55,000 people to evacuate their homes. In Ethiopia, the death toll from the attack in the western Bengush-Ogun Gumuz region has risen to 222 people. The Red Cross said 207 victims and 15 more from attackers have been buried. The Wednesday attack occurred in the village of Bikoji in the Metakil zone. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed called it a massacre and deployed federal troops there the next day. The military killed 42 armed men accused of attacking the village. Ethiopia has been grappling with outbreaks of deadly violence since Abiy was appointed in 2018. Meanwhile, Ethiopia's electoral board says the country will hold a parliamentary election on the 5th of June next year. U.S. COVID-19 death count has exceeded 330,000, while the caseload of the country has reached over 18.7 million. Brazil's death toll has hit 190,000, while its confirmed cases have reached over 7.4 million. Global number of infections is approaching 80 million mark, while the death count is more than 1.74 million. Details on the following report.
The rate of new cases and deaths across the world makes it impossible now to attribute a single cause to the alarming surges. Situation remains the grimmest in the U.S., where the dark winter warned by officials has arrived in Southern California. Health officials say so far the spread of virus has barely slowed in the worst-hit state. Canada's most populous province, Ontario, is imposing tighter restrictions in an effort to curb rising hospitalizations. While authorities say thousands of more vaccine doses are arriving in Mexico as families spend holiday alone after having lost loved ones to the pandemic.
We want all our patients and family members to get ahead, but we want them to not get infected even more. And we want those who are sick to pull ahead and to live, because it's so tragic in this moment how families are missing mothers or fathers or brothers or children, how some families have been completely dismembered, many have very few members left or no family members.
The number of people dying with coronavirus in Italy in the second wave has now surpassed the total recorded in the first wave. Parts of Britain remain under the highest Tier 4 restrictions as the country reported 570 deaths overnight. The new strain of the coronavirus recently found in the UK has now also been detected in France. Meanwhile, South Korea has signed deals with AstraZeneca, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson's Janssen to import vaccines to cover up 16 million people.
The government's continuous efforts and cooperation with manufacturer Janssen led to a contract of additional 2 million doses. As we have announced, AstraZeneca's vaccine will be shipped in the first quarter of 2021, followed by Janssen's in the second quarter and Pfizer's in the third quarter.
In Australia, Sydney's northern beaches will revert to pre-Christmas lockdown as the country struggles to find patient zero for a cluster of cases. In the meantime, Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has received his first dose of vaccine as part of a national vaccination plan.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 63 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 9,816. Health officials reported 2,260 new infections overnight. The health ministry said there are more than 39,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. The ministry said out of over 469,000 countrywide cases, more than 420,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, the Punjab Health Department has constituted rapid response teams to locate and shift coronavirus patients to hospitals. Provincial government spokesperson said the teams will also ensure tests of people found with symptoms of virus infection. Pakistan has issued notices to Google and Wikipedia over sacrilegious content. Pakistan's telecommunication authority said Google search engine shows misleading results about leader of Islam. In a statement, the authority said Google Play Store carries an unauthentic version of the Holy Quran, while it said Wikipedia hosts caricatures of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. The authority added it has been receiving complaints about Wikipedia's deceitful and misleading article. It said the notices are issued under Removal and Blocking of Unlawful Online Content Rules 2020. It said in case of non-compliance by the platform's PTA shall be forced to initiate further action under the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act. Pakistan's Navy chief says the country's armed forces are fully prepared to deal with all sorts of nefarious designs. Admiral Amjad Khan Niazi made these remarks while addressing a passing out parade at Pakistan Naval Academy in Karachi. Niazi said Pakistan's desire for peace should not be taken as its weakness. He said Pakistan's Navy, with its modern equipment, is always on the alert. Niazi reiterated the Navy's resolve to protect the country in the regional and international waters. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now moving on to Russia says responsibility for starting the visa war and the subsequent stalemate lies entirely with the U.S. This comes after U.S. media reports that U.S. diplomatic missions are facing problems in Russia. In a Facebook post, the Russian embassy in Washington said the U.S. imposed the practice of personal visa exchanges. The statement said authors of media reports are misleading their readers. It said the media seeks to place all the blame for problems related to consular and visa matters on the Russian side. It said Moscow acts on the basis of reciprocity. The embassy added the number of visas issued to American officials corresponds to the number of visas received by Russian employees in the U.S. Russia and Egypt have discussed the implementation of large-scale projects in bilateral trade and economy. In a statement, Russia's foreign ministry said foreign ministers of both countries discussed a wide range of issues on a phone call. The ministry said both sides reaffirmed to work on the Treaty of Comprehensive Partnership and Strategic Cooperation. It added both gave attention to implement the projects to build the El Daba nuclear power plant and Russian industrial zone in Egypt. Both countries also discussed the situation in Libya, noting the need to ensure an inclusive national dialogue for the country. The foreign ministers also stressed on the need to consolidate international efforts for restarting direct Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. Ukraine has rejected Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko's remarks about weapons smuggling from Kyiv. In a tweet, Foreign Ministry spokesman Oleg Nikolenko said Ukraine strongly denies yet another insinuation of Lukashenko. Nikolenko said the rhetoric of foreign meddling about the weapons fit nicely into Lukashenko's policy of terrorizing Ukrainian people. The spokesman added that Ukraine is not an enemy of Belarus and condemns terrorism in every form. Earlier, Lukashenko said a terror group led by Nikolai Evtokyevich has brought tons of weapons to Ukraine. Protesters across Armenia are demanding Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan to resign for accepting defeat in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. The protesters shut down traffic in the capital Yerevan, including presidential and parliament residences. They chanted slogans accusing the Prime Minister of being a traitor over the November 10th peace deal with Azerbaijan. The opposition urged Armenians to join the protest. Prime Minister Pashinyan says he is ready to call an early parliamentary elections next year. The 44-day clashes in the disputed region ended with a ceasefire in November. In Georgia, Parliament has unanimously adopted a resolution for membership in the European Union and NATO. The resolution pointed out that membership in NATO will remain a zero-option priority in Georgia's foreign policy. It added that transatlantic unity is the most important precondition for strengthening global security. Member of the ruling Democratic Party, Irakli Khobakidze, said Georgia has been cooperating with NATO since late 1990s. The new Georgian government has continued the policy aimed at joining NATO. Earlier, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg assured the country that it will become a member without any precise time. Instead of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, the three wise men are bringing Bolivians an even more important gift this Christmas. It is the safety measures to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. Details in the following report.
As every festival faced the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic, Christmas was also celebrated in a new style this year. The three wise men or magi hit the streets of the city of El Alto in Bolivia. They handed out face masks to local residents and reminded people to protect themselves against the spread of the deadly virus.
This is to send a message to the people of the city of El Alto that we can't let our guard down. We are being threatened by a second wave. That's why today we have the presence of the three wise men who are visiting us with an important gift. Not a traditional one, but rather today they're giving us face masks so that we can keep up with all the biosecurity measures.
Tradition says that three educated, wealthy, and influential noblemen saw a mysterious bright star appear in the sky. They followed it in order to go in search of the long-awaited Messiah, as they had been told in their dreams. They traveled all the way from Persia to Bethlehem to pay homage to Jesus and mark his birth with gifts.
Now moving on to Italy, a charity has adapted their provisions with the COVID-19 pandemic as Christmas arrived. The community at Santi Diego transformed traditional Christmas lunch for Rome's needy and poor in a takeaway distribution of food and gifts. Details in the following report.
Coronavirus might have changed the world's habits, but it didn't change the goodwill towards people in need. Amid the nationwide lockdown for much of the holiday season to curb the spread of COVID-19, the Sant'Egidio charity broke the ritual and offered takeaways to the indigent people.
It is a great help both from a material point of view, but above all from a spiritual point of view, because during holidays like Christmas, New Year and Easter, it's nice to have company, to have the chance to speak with someone and share your thoughts. Of course, if you do this every day, it would not be the same because otherwise it would always be Christmas.
Volunteers dressed in Santa Claus costumes to hand out red boxes at the church of Santa Maria. People seated, respecting social distancing in the stunning settings.
I think this day is one of the best days because despite the COVID, despite the situation, we are still here to celebrate the XMAS as usual, and we are giving gifts as usual. So I feel blessed. It's one of the best days.
Sant'Egidio, a Rome-based Catholic lay charity organization, was founded in the late 1960s. It has been nominated several times for the Nobel Peace Prize for its work with the underprivileged.
Now moving on to the business stories, the Customs Tariff Commission of China's State Council has extended the additional tariff exemption for 6 U.S. products by another year. In a statement, the Commission said it decided to extend the exemption period according to procedures. It said the exemption was expired on December 25, 2020. The products, including white oil, are among the second batch of U.S. goods. They will be excluded from the first round of tariff countermeasures against the U.S. Section 301 measure. The Commission said the extension will last from today till 25th of December next year. China's foreign exchange market turnover stands at over $28 trillion during the first 11 months this year. The State Administration of Foreign Exchange says China's forex market turnover reached $3 trillion in November alone. The administration said the interbank foreign exchange transactions stood at over $2 trillion. It said China's trade in goods recorded a surplus of over $300 billion in the first 3 quarters, up by 12% year-on-year. Meanwhile, the Center for Economics and Business Research said China will leapfrog U.S. as world's big economy by 2028. This is 5 years earlier than previously estimated. And in cricket, New Zealand have ended day 1 of the first test at 222 for a loss of 3 wickets against Pakistan. Earlier, visitors won the toss and elected to field on a full green bowling track at Bay Oval, Mount Maungawini. Kane Williamson is still on the crease at 94 runs, while Ross Taylor departed after scoring 70 for the Kiwis. Shaheen Shah Afridi was pick of the bowlers for his 3 for 55 for the visitors. The second match of the second series is slated for the 3rd of January at Hangley Oval in Christchurch. India trailed Australia by 159 runs at the end of the first day of the second test at Melbourne Cricket Ground. The visitors were 36 for 1 with debutant Shubman Gill and Sheshwar Pujara still on crease. Australia were bowled out for 195 after electing to bat first. Marnus top scored with 48 runs while Travis had added 38 for the host. Jasprit Bumrah was picked off of the bowlers for his 4 for 56 while Ravi Chandran Ashwin took 3 for 35. Australia are 1-0 up in the 4-match test series after winning the first test by 8 wickets. Manchester City striker Gabriel Jesus and defender Kyle Walker have tested positive for COVID-19. The players, along with 2 members of staff, will isolate in accordance with Premier League and government protocol. City will likely be without the 2 for Premier League games against Newcastle United on 26th of December. Jesus' obvious replacement Sergio Aguero is being eased back after a knee issue and played 16 minutes on Tuesday. Jesus has scored 4 times this season but was missing through injury for a month. Manchester City are 8 points behind Premier League leaders Liverpool with a game in hand. And in football, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has played down speculation forward Mohamed Salah is unhappy at the club. Salah told a Spanish newspaper that he was disappointed not to be captain in FC Midtjylland when Trent Alexander-Arnold was made skipper. The 20-year-old Egypt international also refused to rule out a move to Real Madrid or Barcelona. Following the publication of the interview, Salah came off the bench and scored twice in a 7-0 league win at Crystal Palace. Despite all the speculations, Klopp said Salah is quite happy and enjoying his time at Anfield.
Mo is in a good mood. Mo is in a good moment, in really good shape. So that's the most important thing for me. And training. Okay, today were no cameras, and well, no, you would have seen him laughing a lot. He enjoyed the session, so that's good as well. And all the rest is for sure nice for all of you to write about, but internally, no, nothing really.
Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.